all you reinventors. This is Lesley Jane Seymour, and I'm the founder of this podcast and of the CoveyClub, where women come to reinvent themselves. A man once came also. That was really fun. I'm just so excited to tell you about Anne Leary, who wrote the most wonderful book that you are just going to love. It's called I've Tried Being Nice. It is so perfect CoveyClub material. It is so perfect midlife material. You're going to laugh your buns off. I was sitting there reading it last night. My husband's like, "What are you laughing about? Stop it. You're interrupting me." And she's so dead on for all the issues that we have as you are getting older, all the trials and tribulations, looking back at your childhood. But I really do love the opening essay, which is all about getting out of the nice club as a lifelong people pleaser. I've struggled with that myself, and she's the girlfriend I wanted by my side when all those mean girls were making me be nice to them anyway. So I want to give you Anne's bio, and then I want to get right into this wonderful conversation. You are just going to love her and want to read all of her books, but this one is fabulous, so go grab it. Anne Leary is the New York Times bestselling author of the novels The Foundling, The Children, The Good House, Outtakes from a Marriage, and the memoir An Innocent Abroad. She's written for numerous publications, including Plowshares, NPR, Real Simple, and the New York Times. Her novel, The Good House, was adapted as a motion picture starring Sigourney Weaver and Kevin Kline. Her new essay collection, I've Tried Being Nice, will be published on June 4th, 2024. Anne and her husband, Dennis Leary, live in New York. So here is Anne. She's got lots of tips and tricks for anybody who's wanting to be a writer, who is a writer, who's struggling with their writing. Great tips and tricks on how to find your voice, how to make your writing happen, all of that. So please join me in welcoming Anne Leary. So Anne, I am so thrilled to have you on the podcast. I am a big fangirl of yours. I love the book. I started reading the other night and I'm laughing in bed. My husband's like, "What are you laughing at?" I'm like, "You probably wouldn't understand. You are making so many wonderful sort of insights that women 50 plus have had along the way. Every woman at CoveyClub needs to buy the book so that they can enjoy themselves and laugh and with recognition. You're such a good storyteller. But what I want to do is start just a little bit about your personal reinvention, and then we'll talk about the book specifically. So talk just for people who don't know you or haven't read the book yet. Like, where did you grow up and what did you start out doing, and how then we'll talk about how you got to be a writer.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, thank you for the very kind words about my book, and I'm so thrilled to be on your podcast. I actually write about this in the book. I moved a lot growing up. So I would say that I learned at a young age to reinvent myself over and over again, right? And so I just, we moved mostly in the Midwest. And when I was in middle school, we moved from Racine, Wisconsin to Marblehead, Massachusetts, which is like a very culturally different place. So, but I would say that there were definitely, it wasn't the greatest thing moving all the time, but where I am now in my life, I can look back and see how it's helped me. It's helped me definitely as a writer. I think I had to learn to study people and really, quite, because I wanted to fit in so badly. Otherwise you get bullied. That's, right. So
I love those points where you said, one place you moved to, and the place was, you already knew who were going to be the bullies.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to change your accent, and I did, but I think years later, when I became a writer, mostly of fiction, it really helped me with developing characters, because I do really think I really do like to observe people and, the different characteristics. And I had to, I guess, as a child. So as far as reinventing myself, I actually, every time I'm at this point where a book is about to come out, I say to my husband, because I don't like it. It's very anxious. What if people don't like the book? I love writing. I don't love like the publication, going out.
Right. Sure. You're laying yourself bare. I mean, I know
very vulnerable. I always say to my husband, this is my last book. I'm going to do something else. And he always has to remind me, well, he says you don't really have any other skills.
Well, this is a good skill to have. I
yeah,
promise
so
you're highly
I
skilled in
hopefully,
this
but
area.
yeah, but I did, I studied writing in college. It was my major. And then, I did get married and have children and was really focused on that. And I was trying to actually, for a while, although I wrote short fiction in college but I did a little screenwriting, but then, I was mostly taking care of my kid. Well, I lived in New York. In New York, if you raise kids in New York City in the playground, every mom, actually in the 90s, I don't know if it's this way now, but no, every mother was something else. Like I was a writer, my friend was was a designer, the other ones were, sculptors. We all were doing this stuff when we could. And so
Right.
we never, you know what
Correct.
I mean? I think it's,
Correct.
yeah, but then I did write my first novel. No, my first book was a memoir. It was about the birth of my son. And then after that, I just wrote fiction, which, I think I've had 4 novels published. And then uh, this is my fifth, sixth book. I think 6. I don't know.
Okay. Numbers don't matter here. Just like age is just a number of successful publications
Right,
don't matter.
right.
And so what made you decide to go back to memoir after having done a bunch of novels? And did you feel like you weren't done?
Well, it's funny. My last novel, The Foundling, it took me the longest to write. It was loosely based on my grandmother who worked in a eugenics asylum in Pennsylvania in the 1920s. When I found this out, I became obsessed. This was like 10, it took me, so I was working on another novel. I researched and wrote that novel for almost 10 years.
Oh my.
I loved it. And I loved being in that world. I loved being in that time. I was quite obsessed with finding out everything I could about the place she worked. I'm still obsessed. I still research this, even though there's no reason to, but I get a lot of emails from people who are also doing research about that. So I was not sure what I should write next, but I have had a number of essays published that were well received. And I thought, oh, maybe I should write some more essays and maybe do a collection. And so my new book, I've Tried Being Nice,
There you
is
go. It's so great. Love the title.
I usually wear black. I'm wearing blue just because
That's good. That's good.
brand. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. So I thought I'd do an essay collection. And the title essay, I've Tried Being Nice, was kind of one of the things that inspired me to do the collection because it happened that you have to, I think you might have read it, but I'm a lifelong people pleaser. I want everyone to love me. It's a very, but a neighbor pushed me to the brink of insanity with this
Oh
dog.
yes, the dogs. Yes.
And so
Talk
I
a little bit.
finally
Yeah.
had to confront her, which is so painful. I can't confront my dog. I don't like confrontations, but I did. And I actually pulled up my car to say something, and I didn't know what I was going to say. But when I rolled down the window, I said, "Look, I've tried being nice." And the woman she kind of was back on her heels, and I went, "Oh, that was really
That works.
that
It
worked."
works.
And so the other essays are not all about that. They're about, raising children and I write a little bit about my own childhood. I write about our pets, about taking ballroom dancing lessons with my husband, about, our marriage, happy times and sad times. And, I try to cover a lot, but I think I do there is throughout this theme of reaching a certain age and feeling like I'm entitled to the ground I'm standing on at least, right?
Right.
Like I want to, not be this kind of belly up, like don't kick me, don't hurt me person. And so I do kind of return to that, and I kind of revisit, situations where I was, sometimes just being overly nice isn't authentic, and so I just kind of, different essays. I kind of touch on that.
Well, and it's an interesting struggle. I love the title for that reason. It really resonated with me as I was brought up to be a nice girl. Like you, I forgot to tell you this. I had moved and very much like your father, I can't explain why. Mine was a doctor. We moved every 2 or 3 years as a kid.
Yeah,
He started out in the military, and that was why, and then he kept moving.
Yeah.
And, I don't know what that was about. And it was interesting reading that, possibly your father was just, nothing was right. Nothing was happy. And very similar. My father married 3 times.
So funny.
And
Wow.
no, like couldn't find the right woman, even though they were named the same, Anne Marie, Rosemary. Like there was a lot
No, my dad married two women with the same name. That's so funny. Who are
I'm,
you? Why is my doppelganger here?
I know, that's what I'm telling you. That's what's so weird. So, before the people who are listening who did do a lot of moving like that as a kid, which I thought was very painful as a kid, and in the 50s, not 50s, 60s was when we were moving all the time because I wasn't born until 57. Um, I think what is that? How does that I think it plays into being an observer and being a writer, and also because of the way the movement was done back then. A lot of us, it was not done the way it is today, which is, oh, we're going to relocate to California. You stay home with the kids. I was yanked off a stage in the middle of a recital and put on a plane. And then I remember going into St. Louis in fourth grade on Valentine's Day. So
Right.
how does that make you a writer? Because there are people who are listening who may not have had, the American dream, which was, one place and your high school friends and your grammar friends are still yours. How does that play in for you to being a strength, to being a writer, to being an observer? What are those strengths about that?
Well, one thing was we often moved in the summer because my parents somehow thought like, why break up the school year? But you make friends in school. So we'd move to these new neighborhoods and we wouldn't have any friends. But I loved reading. I loved libraries and reading because what libraries are always the same. And I knew the Dewey Decimal System. I lived in I grew up in the stacks of libraries across America. I knew
Right.
exactly because I was into animals. So I loved to read when I was little, loved to read books about horses and dogs and
Black Beauty, one of my favorite books as
okay,
well, you said. Yeah.
yeah. So it's like, David Copperfield, if he were a horse, that's a
Right, right.
but then I think my kind of like gateway book to actual literature was John Steinbeck's The Red Pony. And then I started reading more of Steinbeck's books, which are very accessible to children. I'm always telling mothers that. I read the Grapes of Wrath really young. And I think that is what that book I remember, that's the first time I remember reading a book and being interested in the structure of it, because it's such a easy structure for even a kid to understand. There's one page is about this Joad family. I mean, one chapter, then you pull back, it's about the Depression in this Dust Bowl back in. And I was really interested in that. And I thought, I'd love to try to, I wanted that. It was the first time I thought, oh, I'd like to, it's something I might try to do sometime. So there was that. So moving was helpful in that I did do a lot of reading from loneliness. And then I did, yeah, as you said, I became very aware of not just, the way people are the same, but the way people are different. And in those days too, you probably know this, it was just regions were so different because
Yes.
it was like local television.
Yes.
So we moved from Racine, Wisconsin, and I think I was still wearing really like bell bottoms, but people here were wearing like straight leg jeans. I just was like 2 years behind, and like people were laughing so hard at me, but quickly, it's like you probably did the same thing. You become this chameleon. I never got a Boston accent, but I can pull one out of my hat if I need to. But I started saying wicked, decent,
Wicked,
yeah,
right.
wicked, the balls, everything. So
Marblehead, as
yeah,
you
and you
wrote.
become aware too. I think, and this helps writers. I think people are the same everywhere. I remember one of the times we moved and I realized, everyone thinks their most popular and most, obnoxious kid is the only one. And I knew their doppelgangers in every school I'd been to. I knew these types were everywhere. And so I think that's helped me as a writer too, just knowing how similar people are, even though outward, the way they behave might be formed by their environment, who we are at the core. It's important to remember in these difficult times, we're more alike than we are different.
No, very interesting. And when did you really decide that you were going to take your writing seriously? Because I have a lot of listeners and a lot of people in the Covey Club who are writers. There's some professional writers because I attract writers having run several national magazines for women. But there are an awful lot who are thinking about writing as a new thing that they're going to do. And how did it come to you that this is something you really wanted to do? And what did you first publish?
Well, first of all, I love that you say writers and not aspiring writers, because I do talk to people who haven't been published yet, but who are very talented writers. I do think for every published author, there's 1,000 unpublished writers who are probably much more talented. But it is hard to get published. I had an experience. My son was born. I went into labor prematurely. My husband and I were dead broke. He was a stand-up comic. We went to London so he could do this show. It was very exciting for us. I was having a normal pregnancy. I was 6 months pregnant. We get to London. I went into labor. We packed for 2 nights. We stayed for 6 months. My son is fine. But my first book was called An Innocent Abroad, but not like the Mark Twain. It's like an innocent comma abroad. Like
Why we love commas, right?
Yeah, right. So it was very, very, very traumatic what I went through there, and very, difficult. So it was years later that it took a while till I was able to write about it. But I wrote 3 or 4 or 5 chapters and sent it to this agent, and he liked it. And eventually it did find a publisher. But what was I going to say about that? Oh, what helped me with that, and what I tell writers all the time who haven't yet been published or who are struggling with just beginning with writing, I had this gift, which was I had written in those days. We didn't have, this was 1990. So we didn't have the internet. We didn't have phones. I was in a ward in a National Health Service hospital. It was an amazing hospital, but I couldn't communicate with people except for writing the old fashioned way. And I wrote to
pen and paper.
On paper. And I wrote to this friend of mine who's hilarious and also a writer. And she saved the letters and she sent them to me. And I read them years later. And I thought, why was I writing so? It was funny, but I was telling her funny things that were happening, even though it was so scary and everything. And those really helped me with the book. But I always tell writers, and I know I didn't make this up, someone else told it to me, but I actually experienced this. Try to write as if you're writing a letter to your best friend who gets you. Don't.
Oh, I love that.
Because writers often think about this like frowning, like New York Times critic.
Who's there?
Or people who don't like them, whatever.
Right.
But if you write to your friend who gets you, that your audience gets you, you have to trust readers do have a sense of humor. They will get you. Give your readers the benefit of the doubt and take them under your wing and write them. That's what I try, especially when I'm writing nonfiction. I really try to write it like, you guys will get this, what I'm about to say. And I think that my favorite writers of nonfiction, and I mean Susan Orlean, Nora Ephron, David Sedaris, who are just wonderful essayists. I could go on and on, but they do that. They write with a sense of, like, is it familiarity? It's more like, a sense of, I know you're going to get this. I don't have to over explain. I don't have to underscore. I'm just going to tell you something. I think you're going to like it, kind of thing. I do tell that to people. Write it to your friend, write it to your sister, somebody.
Right. You can't write for everybody.
Right.
Otherwise you write for nobody. You have to write for the people that
scary. Yeah.
Will get you. And I think that's what's so wonderful about your voice is I'm telling you, it is so CoveyClub. Like everybody in CoveyClub is going to end up buying this book. No, it's just,
I love it.
It's us. And, the wonderful thing about it is we can all relate and we can all feel for you. And we totally understand all those things you've been through. Talk a little bit, because I have so many writers or people, working on their writing. What is your actual writing style? Do you have a time you work on it? I'm a writer where it has to be in my head. You could make me sit down for hour and hours and nothing's going to come out until it's in my head. What is do you write every day? What do you do? Do you have a process?
Right now I'm not, because I'm supposed to be like promoting this book, but when I write in the mornings. I'm the most confident and I'm the most kind of intelligent in the morning. And then my confidence wanes throughout the day. So I might write a passage in the morning and think, this is going to be like maybe not a masterpiece, but a minor masterpiece. Like, this is brilliant. And then I'll have lunch, go back to it in the afternoon. And when I read that exact same passage, like my face is burning with shame. It's like there's a point in the day I have to stop. And sometimes, this is another thing I tell writers, it's something I learned maybe book 3 or something. If you wait if you're working on a book and it's finally working, the characters are working and it's almost writing itself, it's super exciting. I used to keep writing until it wasn't working. Until I was, so I'd write into the night, and then the next day I'd wake up with nothing, which is the worst.
Oh, how
So
interesting.
now I stop at one or two, especially if it's really working. I'm done, because I start at like 5 or 6 in the morning. I get up really early, and that way in the morning it's there. It's already working. So
Oh,
like, yeah,
interesting.
leave it if it's working. Leave it while it's working. Don't leave it when it's idling. Sometimes you have to. It's not always going to be working. But I do find I do need to sit down. Sometimes I will write something that has nothing to do with what I'm working on. I'll do exercises. In college, there was this great exercise that I tell people about where one of my writing teachers had us write in the voice of another author. So maybe, most of the women, we chose to be Joan Didion. It was just 1980.
Oh, but of course,
Yeah,
yes.
or Virginia Woolf, like people with different
Right.
voices. Ernest Hemingway, who's very easy, I find, to write, but not so easy. So I think the reason this teacher taught us to do that was just to open, take the voice, use someone else's voice to tell your story. And then if you haven't found your own voice. So that's something I say. And I sometimes do that. If I'll go back to even a poet I love and read some poetry just to get me out of a stuck feeling of what am I doing?
How do you find your own voice? Because that is one of the things that I try to teach people and try to explain to people is just write like you speak. Don't try to write like something else. But
Right.
it's very hard to get them to let go of what they think it should be.
Yeah, I do remember, because we all have done it, I think, when trying to write very writerly, trying to be very,
Writerly, yes.
yes, to be very, come across as very intelligent and very,
Right.
you know, and it just come, for me, it's not me. It's not the way I speak. It's not really who I am. And the kind of books I write, aren't really, if I were writing a book on, economics and the political, arena or something, that would be different, but that's not what I write. So, yeah, I think again, it helped me that my first book, was a memoir. And then when I'm writing fiction, I do tend to like to write in the first person. I like to get in the head of the narrator, but my narrators of my novels have been quite different. Probably my most successful novel was The Good House, which the main character was an alcoholic, maybe an alcoholic. Her kids thought she was, and she was telling the reader she wasn't. She was very high functioning. And anyway, it's set in New England. I loved that character. I was writing it when I was in my 40s. She was in her 60s, but I was in her head so much. And she was not a people pleaser. She was actually kind of a real New England Yankee. She was, she would help if you had a problem, she'd be there for you. But she was like, not don't touch. She doesn't hug. She's not loving. She's not cuddly.
Right.
And I just became her a little bit. And when I was done writing, I missed her, and I felt I realized I'd become a little crusty when I was writing it. So I don't know if I can't even remember what your question was, to be honest, but I
That's
hope
all
that.
right. No. It's how you write and what. So one last writer question. Do you share your work with anybody while you're working
I
on it? Do you
do.
have a group? Do you have what do you do to sort of fix it up and make it right?
Yeah, so I do have, it's like kind of a casual group. I have a couple very close friends who are also writers, and we often show pages to one another. And we know, um, I know that person is, especially one good friend of mine, Laura Zigman. She's an author. I know she will say the truth. She's not going to savage it. She's not going to say, don't show this to anyone. It's awful. But she'll say the right way. And the same with her. Like but I do love her work. And so but I'm careful, and I will always show my husband, but I'm really careful. I don't show people stuff too early, because even your best friend or your husband, they're only going to give it a good read once. And then when you're like, here's the next draft, it's just natural. So I do like to wait and not show people too soon, unless I'm really kind of perplexed and not sure what's going on. But I also do know sometimes when people show me something, if it's a close friend, I know she just needs to hear it. She needs cheerleading right now. She doesn't need me to say, well, I have a sense of that. And I think my friends do too. Sometimes they need a cheerleader, and sometimes they actually need I think I have this idea that might, about the character. So anyway, I do think it's important if you're starting to write to find a group. Often libraries have, I've done talks at libraries, and then writers groups have formed from those. I found out, so yeah, go to author events and, meet usually people that go to book events, especially at libraries. A lot of people there are also writers. And so you can find a community.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about leaving the people pleaser club. I was so happy to hear somebody like you express the fact. I mean, I have been, I was taught to be a good girl. I was told at Vogue, I was told, you're never gonna get anywhere here because you're too nice. And I finally left. And I went to Glamour where the nice girls were, and they would make fun of that. But that really was not my thing. But I still struggle, like exactly what you talk about in your essays. There are a lot of women listening who still struggle with that. And it pisses me off that I'm 67 years old and I am still I went to my reunion, 50th reunion. Somebody wanted us to go sign a wall somewhere, which was slightly subversive. And it was the bad girl who handed me the marker, and she said, go do it. And I was 67 and I'm like, I don't know if I can do this.
Oh,
I'm going to do something wrong. I mean, how stupid I am. How do you leave that club? How did you leave it?
Well, because I've been working on this book, I'm aware of it every day that I do it. I still do it. It's just,
You still do it. Okay.
I mean, on the one hand, there is something to be said for being courteous and kind and, putting others first. I don't want to be a Karen ever, but I think there's certainly those are far ends of the spectrum. I do write about this in my book. There is something different. Sometimes being nice comes from a place of deep insecurity. And I write about that. I'm like obsessed with these online personality tests. And
oh yes, that was a good one.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it's, I think it's, if I'm being kind or nice, if I'm, it's just, I think people understand what I'm saying. If it comes from a place of selflessness and altruism and nice, it's one thing. If it's so that people like me, and honestly, my daughter she was born more evolved than I am. And she often says this to me, are you doing this because you are worried about what people think? Like it's something simple as going to a party I don't want to go to or something, or a bigger thing, or are you doing it because it's something you want to do, or it's something that, because it comes down to a little bit of narcissism, really. Like people aren't thinking about me that much, but if they are thinking about me, I really want them to think nice things.
Right.
But again,
I think maybe it's generational, because my daughter's like that too. She's like, she doesn't, she tries a little bit, but then she doesn't care.
I'm glad. I think we taught them, especially for their own safety. If a person, especially a male, is nice to you, you don't owe him a thing. Like,
right,
you don't have to talk to him. We weren't taught that. We were taught to be really nice. No
matter what, right?
Right.
So, talk a little bit, just briefly, because we're getting to the end here, about being an older woman and what freedom that gives you. I know I'm not supposed to say that.
No, I am older. Yeah, I am 61. There's a chapter. I went fully gray. Before COVID, I started. It went through COVID. I was gray. I thought I was a silver fox. I was not. It was not a good color gray. It was like this flat white gray. I looked I'd see pictures of myself with friends, and I was like, "Who's that old?" So then my very talented hair person started putting low lights in, and now I'm practically blonde again. But getting older, I don't mind it as much as I thought I would. I actually one thing I have, my mom was young when she had me, so she's only like 21 or 22 years older than me. I remember her going through all the stages because it wasn't that long ago. So I remember, for example, my mother is a beautiful woman still. She was very beautiful when she was young. And I remember though thinking, must be hard when they lose their looks, her and her friends. Now I realize it's because they're fine because they can't see. I can't see anything.
Right. Me either.
I can't see myself. And I have a congenital thing where I'm deaf in one ear and I'm losing hearing in the other. Can't really hear. I think there is a very good thing that when you get older, everything gets dull. I have no idea. Like I still think I look great, and I'm like, there's like a filter on my. Somebody taught me on my Zoom. If you saw me naturally, it's like I'm an old hag.
No, you're not an old hag. You were so funny.
But
So,
I like to be around. I have much older friends. I have some very, very dynamic 80-something friends. I watch them. And
mhm.
I have much younger friends. I like to be surrounded by women, not just my age. So I think that helps too.
But just briefly, have you heard of the fuck you 50s?
The fuck you 50s?
Yeah.
Can we swear on this?
Oh, absolutely.
I haven't,
Please.
but I'm there. I like it.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a freedom that you find, I think, as you get older. And I see that in your writing and I see that in the book. Can you just briefly talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It's just really like I've had enough, and it's definitely true for mothers. During COVID, we had our grown children that are in their 30s here. One of them had a boyfriend. We had too many people here, and this ad kept coming on, a place for mom. It was a retirement home.
Oh, yes, I know that one.
And I said to my husband, I want to go there. And he was like, what? I said, I want to go now. I want to go today. They make food. It's a place for mom. But I really was, and you do get to this thing and your kids, and I remember, I was the same with my mother, but your kids still don't cut you any slack. You're not, you have to be, it's just a hard thing. But I think, yes, you get kind of shut up. Now, I don't want to say like fucking to people, but I do kind of stand my own ground a little bit with people.
Right.
But again, there's this thing, this whole Karen thing is slightly misogynistic, although
Yes.
they show such egregious behavior on like TikTok and stuff, so that most people they show to me look like they have mental illness and are in manic episodes. But
Right. Right.
you have to be careful. It's too bad because I feel like it is a thing that if I just say, well, this isn't working out, I don't want to be, it's hard. It's hard that Karens became a thing right when I became old enough to be a Karen.
Right. Well, I think
try not to
Karen
be,
also has a different, racial thing in it and all that stuff.
Yes.
So you can just, yeah, you can just be a cranky older woman and enjoy it. And I think that's that's my goal, eventually.
Get off my lawn. Get off my lawn.
Right. Be that old lady Anne, that's her house. Don't go near don't let your ball fall in her yard. That's what you want to be, right?
I mean, a little bit. I just do because I feel like there's just some freedom of that. I someday will, I think, wake up and not really care. And I'm much better than I used to be. And I hope someday I'll be even better than I am today. That's how I'm trying to reinvent myself as a person who is fuck you 50s hashtag. Is that what hashtag?
Yeah. Fuck you 50s.
Need one for 60s. Like I'll come up with a one for 60.
Good. Yes, let's come up with a 60s one. Yeah. Where can everybody find you, Anne? Where can they find the book?
They can, if I have a website, anneleary.com, and I will be doing some appearances in the next few weeks. I'm going to be in Boston next week at Harvard Square Books and Wellesley Books. This week I'll be next week. You
have a whole itinerary, I saw.
It's on my website, but you can order my book wherever fine books, any books are sold. I also narrated the audiobook of this, which I've never done.
Oh, fabulous.
That was fun. So, you can buy it. You can pre-order it now or buy it on June 4th when it comes out. So
are you on social media anywhere?
I am Instagram, Anne Leary, Twitter, Facebook. You can find me there. I should be posting constantly about this book and it feels cringy. So you
have to do it.
I know.
For us because people will love it. So do it for me because more people have to hear it. So
thank you. You're
wonderful.
so kind. You really boosted me today.
Oh, good. Well, that's what we do here at CoveyClub. We're all in it for women like us. And I can't tell you how many parallels there are. It's scary. So.
I'm dying to actually talk to you. And we have to have a lunch sometime.
We'll do that.
Yeah.
So thank you, Anne. I so appreciate your
Lesley.
time. Good luck with the book. And we will talk to you again.
I really appreciate it. Bye.
So I hope all of you enjoyed this conversation with Anne. What a peach. She's such a CoveyClub girl. I can't even believe it. And I hope you learned a lot. I hope you take away a lot of her tips and tricks and that you put them into action. If you like the podcast, please follow us. Please give us a review. Please give us 5 stars. That's how other people find us. And if you're serious about your reinvention or reinventing part of your life, it could be your writing. It could be a small part of your life. Maybe you want to reinvent your style. Maybe you want to reinvent your interior design. Maybe, as again, we say reinvention is the big word, but it could be restart, reboot, rethink. Come over to CoveyClub.com. We've got tons of free stuff for you: essays, charts, downloads, checklists, everything you might need to get yourself started. And as I say to you always, don't do this alone. It's too hard. Come and join the Covey Club with fabulous women who can help you get it done. And now we even have a fabulous marketplace. So if you are working on a new book, or if you have a great service or product that you want to sell to women 40 plus, you can join with a marketplace membership, which gives you exposure and your business exposure to everything in Covey Club and all the people who come through our website. And they are very focused, just like Anne's book is, on women 40 and 50 plus. So until next time, please enjoy and have fun.